Right now, the hottest topic in Connecticut is tolls, and it looks as if they're coming back, but how much will they cost you? What will Governor Lamont sign into law? Plus, is what former candidate Bob Stefanowski vowing good for Republicans? Insight from our analysts, Jodi, Latina, and Tanya, Meck. Also, should high schoolers in Connecticut be allowed to vote? We'll debate the proposal with State Representatives Chris Ziogas and Chris Davis. And more suffering in Newtown. We will talk with the brother of a Sandy Hook survivor, J.T. Lewis, who also has a message about school safety. Our flashback. 45 years ago this weekend, the Catholic Church in Connecticut was worried about a very big threat. It's all straight ahead on Face the State this Sunday, March 31st, 2019.
From Eyewitness News, Connecticut's most watched local political program, this is Face the State.
It is 8:30 on this last day of March. We thank you for joining us for Face the State. I'm Dennis House. Tolls in marijuana are the big topics at the state capitol this year and this month. And this week, tolls appear to be moving forward, but what will they look like when they're finally here? If they're here. With us today to talk about that, two political analysts who've been on the program many times, Jodi Latina, representing the Republican view, and Tanya Meck. She is representing the Democratic view. She's with Global Strategy and former aide to Susan Bysowitz. Jodi's an aide to New Britain Mayor Aaron Stewart and a former mayor aide to Linda McMahon. So we thank you very much for being on the program today.
Yeah, great.
First of all, is it as simple to say that Democrats are for tolls and Republicans are against them?
I think that's easy to say, and we've certainly seen the split generally that way. But you see within both of our parties concerns and questions. I think one of the things that Jodi and I both see are people want a little bit more detail. I'll talk about it from a big picture perspective for the Democrats, who, yes, generally by and large are supportive of tolls.
Bob Stefanowski last week on this program said that if he's the next governor, he didn't commit to running, but he said if he's the next governor, he's going to tear the toll system down, take down all the gantries and the toll booths. Is that good for Republicans to hear?
First of all, I'm not even sure that that's possible because we don't even know what this plan looks like. What he's suggesting might not even be here. Are we going to be collecting revenue at that point? Will the gantries even be up? We don't even know what's going to be established. So to come out and say that, I think, is disingenuous because we don't even know what it's going to look like. I was doing some research, and really there are only 2 slides in the governor's budget that even talk about tolls. Where will they be? How many will there be? How much are they going to charge folks for? I mean, it's really hard to talk about something when there's no plan devised.
What's your gut about this? Is he thinking about 2022 already?
I don't know. I thought it was interesting that you asked and he said, oh, that's such a long way away, let's not even talk about it. I think you're going to see a lot of the same names pop up just because they're making it known. There are e-blasts going out to Republicans. There are other folks that are just kind of rearing their heads, making sure that they stay in the mix.
Democrats condemned his comments.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, one, it's 4 years away. I don't think he came on your show during the campaign. Now, we haven't even finished one session with Governor Lamont, and he's already here sort of critiquing it, saying, I can find $1 billion to cut in the budget. He hasn't seen the budget. I think that's disingenuous at best. I'm surprised that he's out this early. I mean, we've got 4 years to go in this administration. We've got 4 years for Bob to start voting in the state of Connecticut. I think there's lots of opportunity for him to participate in the democratic process beyond just coming to your show and talking about what he would cut or what he would tear down.
You've advised candidates. How would you advise Governor Lamont to handle this toll situation? Because there's some who say that he flip-flopped or that he's breaking a promise. Others say his position has evolved as he learned more. So what would you tell him?
Listen, this is really interesting from a governance perspective, not from a campaign perspective, right? He's expending a lot of political capital on tolling, which is unlikely to show results in the short term, right? He is thinking long term for the state of Connecticut. I think he is doing what is right for the state of Connecticut. We know our infrastructure needs a lot of work. I think he's come up with a way to fund it that does not fall on the taxpayers of Connecticut just solely. 40% we think our out-of-state drivers are going to help fund our infrastructure repair and improvements. So he's thinking long-term. I would advise him to keep reminding people that he is thinking long-term and he is doing something that is perhaps not politically expedient in the short term.
And how would you characterize his position change on this?
I think it was disappointing to folks who probably voted for him based on the fact that he was thinking solely on trucks being tolled. That being said, I think at this point the fight is long from over. A lot of folks want to see details. There are folks on both sides of the aisle that don't want to have the working class folks have to pay a toll. Just coming from New Britain over here to Rocky Hill, it would cost me probably $3 just to go round trip for something that I would do on a daily basis and not ever have to pay for.
Yeah, but Jay, we talked about it, right? We talked about it. You go up and down from Florida to Maine, and we are paying tolls in every other state, and yet they're driving having, we talk about Connecticut being a drive-through state. There's lots of revenue to be collected on the way. We don't blink twice. I drive to Massachusetts, I drive to New Jersey, to New York. I'm paying tolls and I'm helping to support their infrastructure. And so, I think that's one way to look at it. Certainly thinking about ways we can recoup some of that revenue from the people who are using our roadways is an important conversation.
Another subject, I'll start with you in this one, Jodi, and that is marijuana. Is it as simple to say that Republicans are against it and Democrats are for it?
I don't think so. I think that this is another one of those issues that goes across party lines. A lot of folks are very against it because of a personal experience, but then there are other folks that say, listen, as long as you regulate it and you're careful with it, we've already got medicinal marijuana, take the next step, recoup some of it, make sure that there are some really good programs in place for those who become addicted, and you can do some prevention. Not everyone's going to use it. I mean, we talked about this earlier. It's like, alcohol. At once it was prohibited, and now it's out there for anyone over the age of 21. But not everybody drinks.
Tanya, is it one of those issues that we sort of have to do because our surrounding states are doing it?
Well, it's not dissimilar to tolling, right? I think we are a little behind the times, and we see people traveling to other states. So I think that's certainly part of it. I think there are quality control issues. We've seen all the problems we've had with something that is an unregulated substance, particularly in Connecticut, most recently in New Haven. I think there are revenue implications, right, from the taxes as well. And so while I agree with Jodi, it's not a Democrat or a Republican issue broadly, we do see much more Democratic support, including with Governor Lamont as our governor.
What kind of marijuana laws do you think we'll see when it's all said and done? Republicans will have some input, obviously.
I would like to think that they're going to be strict, because you certainly don't want it to be the Wild West. I did see that a provision in one of the bills that did just get out of committee does not allow for the gummies, which I think is becoming increasingly dangerous across this country. So it's going to be very unique to our state. They're doing some things that other states haven't even started to talk about, such as wiping records clean for folks that maybe had gotten pinched earlier for selling pot.
I don't know that we'll see anything, to be perfectly honest, other than maybe the directive for a plan, right? If you look at the parallels to medical marijuana and how that passed the state, first thing Governor Malloy did was talk about it, asked for a plan for implementation, and then in year 2, we actually saw the legislation. I think we might be on a 2-year run rate for recreational as well.
In your judgment, how's the governor doing so far?
Listen, I think he's doing really well. I think he is very concerned. I mean, listen, people on the left and the right are not happy with some of the decisions that he's made. I think that's the mark of somebody who's governing in the right way, not pandering to one particular audience. I think we've seen him at his core doing what he believes is right for the state of Connecticut.
As a Republican?
I think that he has a lot of compassion for the people of the state of Connecticut. I think he's doing a lot of good things behind the scenes that maybe folks don't see every day. He's really reaching out, reaching across the aisle, talking to municipal leaders and making sure that he's got their ear to find out their concerns. I mean, let's face it, there's 3 branches in this government. He knows he's up against the legislature, but he also wants to make sure that he's not hurting the surrounding communities. So he's really making an effort to reach out.
Tomorrow's April 1st. We're sort of reaching sort of the tail end of the session. People really need to start to buckle down and do some serious kind of work. What kind of things do you think voters will be seeing in the next, what's the remainder of the session?
Yeah, I would defer to Jodi on that, certainly, and watching the session so closely. I mean, I think you're hitting on the big topics, right? Yeah. We've talked about, we talked about the interesting stuff. We talked about tolls. We talked about marijuana. I think gaming legislation, right? All of that, I think, is
the East Windsor Casino's now back on.
Correct. And some stuff will always crop up, right? Stuff that you thought died weeks and months ago come back in the form of another piece of legislation kind of tucked into something else. So you're going to see some of those oldies but goodies kind of crop up. And not that that's a good way to do the process by any means, but it happens. It's a function of the beat.
I think the one thing that we would just say that Jodi and I were actually talking about that is a little bit different is when we're looking at the bond commission schedule.
Yes.
And that used to be sort of a playground for all. And we're seeing we're the smallest, tightest bond agenda we've seen in a really long time. And so I think what we're starting to see is that clawback of some of that spending, which I'm really impressed with.
Well, the governor says he wants to reduce it by 60%, I believe he said.
It's encouraging. It's very encouraging because when you look at that bonding agenda for Tuesday, it is very slim and it is directed toward things that it needs to be directed toward.
The new Connecticut. Jodi, Latina, Tanya, Meck, we thank you so much for being on the program today. When we come back, do you think the voting age in Connecticut should be lowered? And later, we'll talk with J.T. Lewis of Newtown about school safety and the movement to make schools safer. He says they're not safe right now. And we welcome your comments on our Facebook page. You can also watch past editions of Face the State right now on our YouTube channel or on our app.